Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, Darvin Ham still won't officially name the fifth starter. What's the deal with that? Next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always going to be free and never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with 21,000 plus Lakers fans, basketball fans, NBA fans, fans of the Kamenetsky brothers who just want to be part of a great community of people. Love the comments section there. We are going to, we have a couple of comments that from the show from Tuesday that we're going to use and answer questions for today's show. So keep them coming. At Cam Brothers, you can find us on Twitter, KamenetskyBrothers@gmail.com if you want to actually send us an email. So, well, I said we'll get to those comments in a few minutes. A really great story that kind of goes without saying from Miran Fader over at The Ringer. If she wrote it, it's good. This just one happens to be about Austin Reaves. Some great details in there about just who it is that this guy, that the Lakers have brought back, and what his life has been like over the summer and now post-contract. So plenty to get to. But Andy, maybe you disagree with me. I've never thought of Darvin Ham as funny. Like, he's not throwing out one-liners. He's not, got zingers all over. Great guy, nice guy, clearly has a sense of humor, but there's I think I've discovered.
I mean, we covered for a contrast. We covered Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was zinger after zinger after zinger. Often, I think, as a mechanism to keep people from actually questioning him.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it was strategic and part of the whole Zen master aura that he was using to manipulate a lot of things around him. But nonetheless, Phil Jackson was legitimately funny as the guy with the one-liners. I think I would agree.
Sometimes really mean.
Yeah. Oh no, look, man.
But funny, like throwing out jokes. Darvin less. I think I found his first troll / joke or whatever again, Andy, at practice on Tuesday, despite the fact that he said on like the second day of training camp that he was pretty sure he knew who he was going to start the season opener. Still wasn't going to name who that player is. All indications seem to be that it's Taurean Prince. The Lakers offense this preseason with Taurean Prince has been stunning. Jared Vanderbilt has been unavailable. He was not going to play in Thursday's preseason finale, but in theory, if he was cleared to play after being evaluated again on Friday, would have time to get back into the lineup and theoretically start before the season opener in Denver. He's just messing with people now, isn't he? Right, Andy, Darvin?
Oh, I at this point, this is a commitment to a bit. And this has become like a recurring in-joke, I think, between Darvin Ham and the assembled media. Like, I love it. I love that he has totally unnecessarily created this theater about the fifth starter, and like has turned this into him protecting classified documents or like nuclear secrets. Like, this is a real, like, Marvel scripts don't get this type of secrecy during the shooting period, the filming period, as Darvin with this fifth starter. I hope he keeps this up during the season. Like, whoever it is, like, we both think it's going to be Taurean Prince. I don't want him to actually acknowledge who it is. Like, even afterward, like, it was Taurean. You tell me. I don't know. Like,
Darvin, why did you put Taurean in the starting lineup? I don't know what you're talking about.
No, the guy, I want the fifth starter to go out there like in a Mexican wrestler mask so we never know 100% who it is.
It just says Mr. X on the back of his jersey.
No name on the back. I don't even want that much. I don't want a name. I don't want a number. I want everyone that isn't LeBron, AD, D'Lo, or I guess Reaves is sort of his own giveaway. But I want everyone else to have the exact same haircuts.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. To try to disguise Austin Reaves would get into some really uncomfortable territory.
Yes, it would.
Very uncomfortable, wildly inappropriate.
I was going to say uncomfortable and frankly unacceptable.
Right.
I want Darvin
in the year of our Lord 2023.
I mean, honestly, it was unacceptable.
Yeah, unacceptable.
Lord, like 1923,
right.
But
1823.
I want Darvin to just treat this like an Andy Kaufman-esque skit that he just never acknowledges who this fifth starter is, because he has so leaned into this bit. Chef's kiss. It's wonderful.
Yeah. But it does appear that I think it'll be Prince. And I just
maybe it's like Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's just going to go in a completely
Maxwell Lewis.
Yeah, just complete curveball.
No, I mean, that would be a misdirection. I mean, because Lewis has had some nice moments in the preseason, but not that nice.
Maxwell Lewis in a Mexican wrestler mask.
Process of elimination of that. Where is Maxwell Lewis? Don't know. Yeah. Haven't seen Maxwell Lewis and that Mexican wrestler in the same place at the same time. At some point, even with the understanding of what Vanderbilt did last year in the starting lineup, and it was effective and it worked. At some point, I think you just got to kind of give over to what you're seeing on the court, the results that you're seeing on the court. And, I know other people are breaking down film and looking at it. We've obviously talked a lot about it. I noticed a tweet today from Crandus McBasketball with the Lakers Exceptionalism Pod. He does a ton of film work and stuff like that. He noted too, breaking down the minutes with the core five starters that we assume they're just getting everything. They're getting whatever they want on offense, like whatever they want.
I think there's also something to the idea that given that the last few years, this team has not just struggled at times offensively, but they've specifically struggled with half court sets. Like really anything that wasn't in transition. The Lakers could sometimes get those points, but it never felt easy. And when that one side of the ball feels effortless, it makes it easier. And I think in certain ways, psychologically less daunting to try to play that type of defense. You often get inspired to do it. You find the extra energy to do it when it doesn't feel like you're playing defense because like you're literally defending your basketball life out there.
Yeah, and offense can make defense easier too because other teams start to speed up what they're doing. They start to get a little tight. When your offense is just clicking at a really high level, the other team feels like it needs to score every time down the floor to match you. And if they're not quite at the level that you are, that can be difficult. And so you are setting yourself up to suck a little life out of the opposition that way too. And so I think that makes it all of it just, they got to get off to a good start. This Western Conference is brutal. A week ago or 2 weeks ago, we kind of broke down those first 15 games. They're really tough. So it's important for the team to get off to a good start. All of that just, I think, points to going with what has worked so well. Let's open the mailbag, Andy, or the comments bag, I should say. And we'll pull a couple comments from the YouTube page that we thought were particularly interesting. We'll do that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Bird Dogs, the makers of shorts and pants that feature the future of comfort built-in underwear. It's stitched inside the pants or shorts, almost like a layer of boxer brief that is at one with the clothing. They call it Comfort Kingdom, and you can rule this land in your Bird Dogs. They make your legs look and feel great. The stretchy fabric, they're not made from typically stiff, restricting cotton like in most leg wear that makes your legs feel confined. Bird Dogs feature cloud knit fabric that looks like regular khaki, but it stretches. It's liberating. Indulge your legs. And they're versatile. You can wear the same pants or shorts on a golf course, a work meeting, on a date, even in the same day, because they are designed not to stink. You will not become an outcast in your bird dogs over the course of 24 hours. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter the promo code LockedOnNBA at the checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free water bottle at the checkout. You will not want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you.
So we've noted a lot about D'Angelo Russell and the kind of the turnaround that he's had in this preseason. For Tuesday's show, it was Monday or Tuesday, I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. We talked
Tuesday.
about he mentioned patterning himself after Derek White of all people. Not exactly who you would think of for a player like Russell to be like, I want to emulate that guy, but it makes a ton of sense. He described the winning plays that he makes. He just does a lot of things that aren't necessarily noticed by fans, noticed by media, but they just translate to winning, particularly on the defensive end. And that is the type of role model that he is putting in front of himself for this year. And so far so good. We got this comment from at HERKIMER on the YouTube page, and he made a really interesting comparison. He said D'Lo is on track of doing a mini Dwight Howard, beloved by all Laker Nation. And what he means by that, I think, is that comparison to Dwight is the guy who went from being really unpopular and really reviled, and from maybe reviled in the case of D'Lo might be too strong, but
I don't know if it's too strong actually.
Depends.
When you
Depends on certainly the day after the end of the Nuggets series, and even going back a little further. But
I was going to say there was a lot of stuff happened in that first go around with the Lakers.
A guy who was not really super popular. At the very least, quite polarizing. Somebody who many Lakers fans, at least in the immediate aftermath, and this is definitely true. We're not necessarily enthusiastic to bring back. We pointed out the necessity of it and the need and the fact that it was just smart to bring him back from a basketball standpoint.
We both also think, on balance, D'Angelo Russell played very well last year.
He did, but the anger was genuine following that Nuggets series because that sucked, and he sucked in that series. But it's a really interesting comparison, just to be like the next guy who comes and turns around the sentiments of Lakers fans from very negative to very positive over the course of a year.
Yeah, and in certain respects, a lot of this comes down to different, I think, degrees of maturity or an ability to read the room. When Dwight showed up, and in certain respects, I think getting blamed for things that were not totally their fault. Like Dwight's first go around with the Lakers, he did not know how to. We covered that team. We were in that locker room a lot. Dwight did not know how to turn off a lot of the Dwightisms, and that stuff wore thin in a locker room with Kobe
quickly.
And Steve Nash and Pau Gasol and some guys who I think were more professional than Dwight in very specific ways and shared the same type of professionalism. And Dwight, to his credit, tried to play through a back injury that was limiting him by his standards, and I think was more productive than people actually remember. But he left the organization on really bad terms, and then kind of like D'Angelo, Dwight ended up bouncing around the league, and a lot of people questioning, for different reasons. Dwight was hurt a lot, but he also rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, which D'Angelo has also been accused of in different stops as well. And it took this second go around with, I think, a different recognition of who he was as a player and what's needed from him to carve out a place in the league. Dwight was obviously much older than D'Angelo is now, but Dwight ended up, by doing and saying all the right things and having a different attitude, he ended up really endearing himself in that second go around that led to a championship. D'Angelo Russell, during his first stint with the Lakers, between the way Byron Scott often talked about D'Lo in ways that I don't think were always fair to D'Angelo, the Nick Young thing, Magic's comments about D'Angelo Russell after trading him, saying, we We needed a point guard who's more of a leader, that stuff. And then, the Denver series plus DAngelo bouncing around. You're right. And I think the commenter was right. DAngelo has had to do some image rehab, certainly among Laker fans. And this preseason has been a really good start.
The true turnaround will require, if he comes out of the chute with 2 bad weeks, we're back to when can we trade him? When's the deadline? TikTok. Let's move on this. But the opportunity is certainly there, and the enthusiasm, because Dwight, people were quite skeptical, and then he kind of comes back in the preseasons there, and he's playing well, and it's like it didn't take long for people to be back. Now the difference is, I think the expectations are a little bit different this time around. I don't think people knew what they were going to get with Dwight. They also had JaVale McGee there, and he wasn't. I think people weren't quite sure what he was going to be on that team. Russell is expected to be quite good and needs to be quite good, but it'll be interesting to watch that happen over the course of the season to see if it really does.
The commitment that he has said that he has made, particularly, a lot of this really is about defense, as much as his offense completely left him during the Denver series as well, and that was problematic. I think
if his offense is better, if he's shooting at his normal rates, if he's converting, then his defense by comparison isn't as problematic. It's when you paired his completely awful offense with the defensive problems, that's really what got him, what allowed him to be played off the floor so easily, I think.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. The defense was sort of baked into what you expected from D'Angelo Russell, but I think the fact that he couldn't offset the defense with his offense, which combined, I think this got overshadowed a lot by the fact that other guys were also not making jump shots. Like D'Angelo Russell was not the only guy whose offense escaped him during the Denver series, but this often happens. One guy can become the face of a struggle. Like in 2008, lost to the Celtics in the finals. And there's that 39-point Game 6 loss. Powell, and I think to some extent Lamar, became the face of all of that. Even though they were not the entire problem, it really fell about 75% on Powell, 25% on Lamar. It was decided they were not tough enough, and that was the problem. Even though I think in retrospect, the real problem was Boston was just readier for this than the Lakers were.
That happens a lot where with the Dodgers, it's like, baseball is, and baseball is even more arbitrary and weird and kind of stupid than basketball. Like basketball, at least the better teams tend to advance. Like, you don't see a lot of 1-8 upsets, 2-7 upsets in basketball like you do in hockey, like you do in baseball, where the lower seeded teams advance constantly. But like when disappointing things happen in sports to your teams, you just want to find reasons that are more satisfying than I don't know, just wrong place, wrong time, bad luck. And I do think it is fair to say that Russell had the sort of most tangibly and aesthetically bad series against Denver. The gap between the Lakers actually beating Denver and where they were eliminated was a lot bigger than Russell plays better. If Russell had played out of his gourd and everything else stays the same, the Lakers probably lose in 5.
Right.
But like, if you're looking for something that just stuck out as like, that guy was terrible, it was D'Angelo Russell. And
that's also,
I defend him. It was absolutely D'Lo.
But also too, putting a bow on this, D'Angelo was also a guy that still had not won over Laker fans.
No.
And so when he's the guy doing this, when he's the guy struggling, it's going to hit different than some other guys struggling.
And it's going to be harder for him to pull off the Dwight again, because the expectations are higher. because he's seen more as a player in his prime, because it is, quite frankly, not as charming a story, because he's still, what is he, 28 or something like that? I mean, it's like, whereas Dwight was washed and out of the league, essentially. If DeMarcus Cousins doesn't get hurt, I don't know who Dwight Howard signs with.
I actually got a pretty strong impression that the answer was nobody.
Nobody.
I mean, maybe mid-season somebody's hurt, whatever,
but not.
I think he would have started the season not on a roster.
Right. And, he was humbled in ways that Russell, while he took a pay cut to $18 million. Like, nobody's passing a hat. Like, it's not exactly the same. But when that comment came, it was like, I know exactly what he's getting at, and it's a really interesting point. We'll save the other comment that we have. This one comes from Quasar Explorer about some of our comments regarding our optimism in the team and the sort of general optimism around the team. We'll save that for tomorrow's show, just because it kind of leads nicely into the Lakers' last preseason game of the year. But next, Andy, let's talk about Austin Reaves and the really fun Mirren Fader story that went up at the Ringer. We'll do that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel, and you can celebrate this NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you bet just $5, $5, and you get $200 back in bonus bets, guaranteed. And you can use those bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, futures, all sorts of fun stuff. And the app is really easy to use. It's a fun experience. And again, all those options right at your fingertips. But of course, also NBA props that you can bet on opening night. The Lakers are, as of this recording, 5.5-point dogs on the road against the defending champion Denver Nuggets and chatty Michael Malone. LeBron is a 50-1 bet to win MVP. Anthony Davis, 30-1. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and enjoy this NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL.
So I think, Andy, you would agree that there are very few writers working in sports that consistently put out excellent work more than Mirren Fader over at the Ringer now. And she has a story out about Austin Reaves that is filled with just some great detail about this, summer of Austin, so to speak. And this sort of ascendancy. I don't want to say it's unprecedented in NBA history, because it probably precedented in some way.
Yeah, it absolutely is precedent. There have been undrafted players who've gone on to have all-star.
Right. What I mean by that is just the sort of, not just the idea of an undrafted player becoming, an all-star caliber player, or even better, or Nikola Jokic is a second rounder, is now what, a 2-time or 3-time MVP.
Two-time.
Track of these things. He'll win another one before he's done. But just like this sort of ascendancy and the speed with which he has gone from kind of a novelty to Taylor Swift's boyfriend / World Cup / quasi all-star taking photos with LeBron and Anthony Davis, like the storyline, as much as anything, is what I'm getting into. I can't think of an analog off the top of my head. I'm sure it's out there. There are tons of really interesting details that came out about this, about how he spent his summer, but also his personality. I have a couple thoughts of things that I found interesting, but what stuck out to you?
There was one part in there where Austin told a story about after Game 3 of the Western Conference semifinals, where he really struggled a lot in that game. And you may recall, like, Reaves hit kind of a wall during that series and eventually had to pull himself out of it. He acknowledged that the first round against the Grizzlies and having to chase Desmond Bane around all these screens all game was really tiring. And after Game 3 against the Warriors, he finished 2 of 8, even though he finished up the game itself pretty good. But he was talking with LeBron afterwards and AD, and he was joking. He said, quote, I was plus 15. And from the story from Mirren, quote, but James just looked at him when he made the joke. He wasn't laughing. Okay, plus minus, it's out the window for you. You're too good, James said, according to Reaves. Sometimes my plus minus is -5, but that doesn't mean anything for some guys. Reaves paused. He was now, quote, some guys. F. Reaves realized one half of satisfactory basketball wasn't good enough anymore. Arguably the greatest player of all time expected more of him. So he had to expect more from himself too. That exchange stuck with Reaves heading into this fall slate of preseason games. LeBron's expectation is growing as well as everyone else's, Reaves said. And I invite that because it gives me more motivation. And it jumped out at me, Brian, just the idea that Reaves going from, the guy who does the little things, who makes the smart plays, who's always out there, when winning is happening, to being the eye test guy, and where it's kind of bleep the advanced numbers. And it's not that advanced numbers don't come up when we talk about stars at all, but it's just they aren't frequently used to quantify stars, because with superstars, the raw numbers are often accepted as speaking for themselves. And Reaves is, LeBron is telling Austin Reaves, you are a guy that we are looking for more than just glue, and the smart plays and some of the stuff that doesn't come up in the stat sheet. We are looking at you for production because you are good enough to be a producing guy. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think where I would especially agree is I agree that superstars, stars, whatever gradation you want to use, are acknowledged as such on the eye test when it's accompanied with winning.
Sure.
And the why do people pick on Trae Young and kind of question whether or not he really belongs in that tier of elite superstar type players? It's because it doesn't come with winning. Ultimately, and also too, some of his stuff's really easy to pick apart because there's a lot. The inefficiency is you don't even need the numbers, but you get what I'm getting at.
Or like Zach LaVine.
Sure, a good example. Like if it doesn't come with winning, then that's when people start digging into the other stuff.
This happened with Devin Booker for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So with Reaves, I think what you see is that the production contributes to winning. It contributes to, to use the D'Angelo Russell, Derek White inspiration thing, winning plays that make the team better and lead to success. And so I love that sort of categorization where it's like, you're not sneaking up on people anymore. We don't need to dig into a box score to be like, oh, you know what? Like, check out his on-off rating and stuff like that. He really does. Like, the team functions better. It's like, we want to see it. We'll see that anyway, because that's what you are. But now it's time for that to come up with the stuff that, as you like to call them, the tangibles.
Yeah.
Move past the intangibles and give us the tangibles too. And to that end, what I thought was, the stories that she's telling in here, and again, Mirren is just as good as anybody who does it in sports writing. His competitiveness and desire to show people that I can hang 20 on you, I can hang 25 and 6 dimes or 10 dimes and a bunch of rebounds and do all this stuff. I feel like for a guy like Reaves to hear that from LeBron is almost like that permission structure to, okay, you don't have to hold yourself back to anything. You don't have to conform to anything. There's, D'Angelo Russell saying the same thing. Go do you. Like, don't defer to anybody. Go put up your numbers. And that combination, you saw him doing that with Team USA. That's not an easy environment to step into as a second, as an undrafted guy with all those first rounders and lottery picks and this and that, and go out and be like, I am as good. I am better than all of you. His brother, Andy, I thought it was interesting. He's 66th in the ESPN rank. And, we were like, that's pretty good. And his brother's quote was, Austin won't tell you that, but there's no way he thinks he's that low.
I mean, it's not an apples to apples comparison, but I think the principle is similar. Derek Fisher used to talk about how playing with Kobe, you have to protect your space.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's certain times when you are going to be out there with Kobe where he is going to clap for the ball because he's always clapping for the ball. And if you have a good shot or you have a good opportunity, you see the play in front of you, you have to ignore Kobe. And you have to do the thing that you think is the right basketball play. And look, if it doesn't work, he's going to death stare you and he's going to mother F you. But the next day, the sun's going to come up and it's going to be okay. And ultimately, you're going to earn Kobe's respect that way, assuming enough plays work out. But part of the reason you need to do that is self-validation. You have to prove to yourself that you are worthy of being on the court with Kobe. But also, too, if you don't do this, Kobe is the type of personality, and this is where I think it's not apples to apples in terms of LeBron, because LeBron is, I think, more egalitarian than
LeBron. I think you have to protect your space with Kobe. I remember when he said that, I was like, that is.
And remember, Derek Fisher was Kobe's most trusted teammate and loved playing with Kobe, but
still never went to his house. But it's a whole other story that we should get into one day. But whereas LeBron, I think, pushes you more to defer, pushes back when you do defer.
Right.
Kobe would take that deference, go do something with it, and then not respect you the next day.
No, I mean, Kobe would roll you if you allowed him. I mean, you and I, we've worked in radio. We've worked with people before that you needed to make sure that you were sort of protecting your space on air, because other words, not because these people were a-holes or anything, but just their natural personality.
They'll roll you.
They would roll you and dominate the conversation. So I think that is something with Reaves. It's a validation for himself. As you said, it's sort of a permission structure, but it's also LeBron needs Reaves to do this stuff in the same way he needs everyone else to do this stuff.
Yeah.
He's 39 years old. He's getting too old for this bleep.
I just, the chip, he's like, if anybody is concerned that Reaves will somehow, after getting paid, after whatever, is going to lose some of that chip on his shoulder, go read the story. You will not be concerned anymore. He still, it was so funny, the adoration he was getting in the Philippines, and easily the most popular player on that team. It's Laker country down there, to say the least. So he was set up to be popular, but just the whole thing of it. He is still one of those guys. Everybody who's quoted in the story will tell you that every time he sets foot on the court, he's basically going with F you. I'm not even sure who these people are who think he's not good anymore. I don't know how many people there are that believe that, but his attitude is F you, every time he's on the floor, and that is not going anywhere. Which is why, if you are somebody who thinks there's still a lot of room for him to make a leap, this is the kind of stuff I think that you point to. So we'll get to that other comment that we were going to talk to from Quasar. We'll do that tomorrow. Get you ready for the final preseason game. Less than a week, Andy. Less than a week before the real games begin. Super excited about it. And we will see everybody tomorrow.